Alright, today we have a bit of a big build on our hands because not only are we building a Torvosaurus Habitat, but we're also building an Italian Palazzo, because why not? Anyways, before the video actually gets started, don't forget to hit the like button because it does help out a lot. And now let's see what this crazy squirrel got up to. Alright, let me just ask you guys this right off the bat, for anyone who has been playing Prehistoric Kingdom. What is the biggest mistake you have made so far? Because yes, this Italian Palazzo that I talked about, or mentioned, that's the one with the dreaded roof, where I had to select every roof tile individually because there's no mass selection. I did read your guys' comments on like, oh, you need to click this button or hit this button or hold this button. I tried, it didn't work. However, I did join the Discord. Although I'm not much of a talker, so it's kind of like sneaky squirrel in there. Like I'm there, but you'd never see me, just like in the gym. But anyways, when it comes to today's build, as I said, there's the big Palazzo, which is inspired by the Palazzo Medici Riccardi, which I don't know if I said that name correctly, but then I don't know if I said Torvosaurus correctly. But the only reason why I remembered that Palazzo is because Assassin's Creed. I mean, there's no other reason why I would remember that palace out of all of the other palazzos in Italy. And yes, I will use palazzo and palace interchangeably because damn it, Assassin's Creed. But that building is going to be towards the end of the video. When it comes to the Torvosaurus Habitat, I basically only choose or picked this dino because it has a higher water allowance. I think in the previous dinosaur habitat build I used the Protoceratops, if I remembered it correctly, but then I have the memory of a goldfish. But that dino didn't really have a high water allowance, so I could only have a little pool of it before they got angry about how much water was in their habitat. With a Torvosaurus, I could go completely wild, so I made these sort of waterfall pools where it's one big waterfall that empties into a pool, which falls into different pools and such. I just could go completely wild with the water, which is what I like to do. I just like to build creeks and waterfalls and rivers, and there's not a lot of dinosaurs that want as much water as I would want. However, we all know that eventually I will just go wild and ignore the needs of the dinosaurs and just build their habitat as like a complete river. However, speaking about going wild, yeah, I read one comment in the last video. I hope nobody thinks that my videos are child friendly or going into them that they're child friendly. I never have advertised them or claimed my videos as child friendly, and yeah, let's just say from the get-go, I am not a child friendly channel. If I will curse, I will not really hold back on mature topics or anything, so please don't watch this if you want a child-friendly video, because I will curse. Although, the funny thing is, they put a timestamp in their comment on where they said or thought the video really went unchild-friendly, and before that timestamp, I already made at least one weed joke about oh, it's not a Dutch coffee shop, there's no green grass in here, and the stereotype about Dutch people is just weed. And also, if you say coffee shop to a Dutch person, legitimately just say coffee shop, not a Dutch translation, but if you say coffee shop to a Dutch person, at least to me, I will think that you're thinking about weed or buying weed. Because when you say coffee shop to a Dutch person, we think about, well, coffee shops, which in Dutch, or in the Netherlands, usually means place where they sell weed. Anyway, so that was kind of funny to just that went completely over their head, but I think I cursed at their timestamp and that is what they picked out as non-child friendly. Alright, I'm not bashing them in any sort of way. If you go into my videos thinking they're child friendly, alright, it's not correct, but you very quickly learn that they're not child friendly, so just your nice, what is it called, PTA of Poisonblade's videos are not child friendly. You've been warned. Anyways, let's move on from that, because I said in the previous video, and this video is when it comes to the Italian Palazzo that I'm making right now, Yeah, in the previous video I went on about like, oh, I'm building hinges for doors, like that level of detail. And I went kind of on and on about it. And I think, yeah, someone said like, oh, don't like bash yourself for that. It's not that I was bashing myself for building hinges and going that level of detail and somewhat over-fixation, or not over-fixation, like just zeroing in when it comes to focusing, or hyper-focusing, I think is the right word. I think sometimes I know what I said in the previous video, or at least I said it correctly in the previous video, but then in the next video I will completely forget the word again. I think it's like hyper-focusing or something, I don't know. But I wasn't really bashing myself for the hinges. However, I didn't think I would be the person to like go that level of detail, because knowing myself from Planet Zoo, like that level of detail with like door hinges and such, I've never done that. Like I never found fun in that or doing that. However, in Prehistoric Kingdom, I really enjoy doing that level of detail. Just like having door hinges. I actually said to them that I was thinking of like building power outlets, which such a tiny thing, but I would find it really enjoyable. Although in the Italian Palazzo that we're building right now, yeah, I didn't really need power outlets, so I didn't build them. However, I used that like sort of hyper focusing on the power outlets to eventually build just a balloon cart, like legitimately with like helium tanks, the wheels, everything made custom. Like a big just ball of all these balloons, like this big cluster of balloons. I really enjoyed doing that. So it's not like, oh, I'm bashing myself for really focusing on like those tiny little details. It's just that I'm surprised that I actually enjoyed doing that, because in Planet Zoo I would have never thought of doing that, and I would probably find it very tedious. However, it can also be because in Planet Zoo you can't like, you can't really change the sizing of things, so it's a lot more difficult because you have to find like just the right piece, and then usually it's not there. In Prehistoric Kingdom, legitimately the hinges are made out of lights that I've turned off and just made really tiny so that it looked like a hinge. But yeah, I really enjoyed doing that. So when it comes to the Italian Palazzo that we're building right now, it was really just meant to be a spawn point. Like I needed a place where the guests would spawn that was kind of hidden, made kind of sense, and so Italian Palazzo. It's supposed to like be basically a place for the guests to wait on the ferry. I also made like a door that's closed off because I didn't want to like build that part, but I made a door that's closed off that leads to like a museum. So you can't go inside the museum because I wasn't going to go that far in today's video. There is a doorway that would lead to a museum if I actually built the interior of the museum. Now it's just a closed door with like basically just ropes to kind of close it off. Like, you know, those not red carpet like ropes, but well, sort of like those construction ropes that sort of close off an area. Actually, I think most times that I've seen the ropes that I've built or the fences that I've built for it, I think it's mostly in movie theaters that I've seen it. Like it's those, well, movie theaters and theme parks. So it kind of makes sense that it's on Andros, which, just to harken back to the comments again, I think right now 3 people have pointed out that Andros is actually a real island. One island, or at least there's actually 2 islands that are named Andros, one in the Bahamas and one in Greece. I mean, Malta is kind of on the middle point. Not really, but just it's in between those 2 places. But yeah, Andros, this series wise, is just like, it's in between Sicily and Malta. I've positioned it there. There's not like a specific location, it's just in between there somewhere, because I made a like board with like the ferry times, like what time does the ferry arrive, and I've put some cities on Sicily on there as well, which I think on the ferry would like take an hour or 2, I don't know. So there's that. But I really just like, I enjoyed going that level of detail for some reason in Prehistoric Kingdom. Like, I'm not bashing myself for going that level of detail, I'm just surprised by it. And then when it comes to just the comments, there were 2 comments that gave me like, well, not tips or hints, but basically gave more information on dinosaurs. I didn't reply to those comments because any reply that I would have made would have just dumped down the comments. So yeah, I think one, what was it? I forget names so frequently, like basically constantly, and really, please don't feel bad about me not remembering your name. I once forgot my nephew's name, and I was legitimately for a day just like, It's worse, like legitimately. Luckily, I didn't talk to him that day. I was just at home, so there was no need for me to actually, remember his name that day. But it's the worst when you forget someone's name and then they come up to you and like your brain is just trying to not only remember their name, but also talk to them in a way of like, either you want to like somehow make it so that they drop their name, or you're just trying to avoid naming that person. So you're just like, hey mate, hey guy, or hey whatever. And yeah, it's just awkward. Well, awkward most likely for you. Because probably that other person just doesn't care about it whatsoever. But you yourself are just like, oh god, he knows or they know and they will never forget me or forgive me for this. Yeah, that has happened a lot of times. Like in college, when it's like, well, with like your fellow students, like there's so many times where I'm just like, what was your name again? But then I know for sure that like in college, nobody cares. We're just like, yeah, I don't know your name either. You don't know my name? Good. Anyway, so yeah. What's the point of this voiceover again? I don't know. However, I'm sitting cross-legged, which means that one of my feet is falling asleep. And just a fun little side tangent, although, well, basically this entire voiceover has been side tangents. Well, tangents are already to the side, so that's kind of just, I don't know. But sitting cross-legged, in Dutch it's called sitting in the kleermakers sit or kleermakers positie, which translated goes to sitting in the tailor's position, which is just a way more interesting name than cross-legged. Because when I think cross-legged, I think CrossFit, and then I'm going to be sad because I should really go back to the gym. But sitting in the tailor's position, well, it also sounds, well, it sounds better, but also kind of strange now that I think about it. Also, yes, I made a lot of signs in today's, well, not a lot of signs, but I made some signs in today's video, and it's just like, again, the resizing tool in Prehistoric Kingdom makes this so great. However, all of the letters are lights actually, so that's it. That made it somewhat difficult, or at least it looks like they're lit up. But yeah, here are also the ropes that I talked about, or the fences. I've mostly seen these in movie theaters, but I thought like, yeah, it works fine for the closed off museum as well. And legitimately, as I said, the only reason that door is closed is because I didn't feel like building an entire museum in today's video as well. Because damn, I built a lot today. Like I built an entire Torvosaurus Habitat, which I probably mispronounced, and I built an entire Italian palazzo inspired by the Palazzo Medici Riccardi. Although I only remember it as Palazzo Medici because it is Assassin's Creed 2. It's called the Palazzo Medici because the Riccardi family hadn't bought it yet, because the Medici were still in power and they still owned the palace, so it was named the Palazzo Medici. And I think later on, from what I have read, the Medici family sold it off because they moved to a different palace. And yeah. Anyway, so it is inspired or based off of the Palazzo Medici Riccardi. However, I did change it a little bit just because, well, it needed to be a spawn point. So I needed the doors to be open, and needed to have like a certain place, and it didn't really fit in how the Palazzo Medici Riccardi is structured, so I had to change that a little bit because the Palazzo Medici has like an inner courtyard as well, and I didn't need that. And building an inner courtyard for this building, first of all, was going to make the building too large. Second, again, I've already built enough, I would say, for today's episode. Like, I know that like building this building, there's so much that I had to cut out, like so many custom windows that I had to make. I've shown you guys one custom window, but like the doors, like there's two versions, one that's closed and one that's open. Then all of the other windows, and there are like some significant like windows in the Palazzo Medici Riccardi that I wanted to have, so I needed to make that. I needed to make like the showcase things for, or the showcase, what are they called again? I'm just going to call it the showcase tables, to really signify, oh, this is a museum, but then have that outside the museum as well. But I'm really happy with how everything turned out. The Torvosaurus Habitat is sort of 2/3 done, because the upper part of the habitat is going to be close to the village, and I first need to figure out, alright, how's the village going to look so that I can blend those two together. So the upper part of the Torvosaurus Habitat is kind of open still. However, the lower part with the waterfalls, I'm just so amazed by that I made it work. Like, I'm so proud of that. And also, during the the shooting of the cinematic videos, I scared myself shitless so many times because the Torvosaurus just roared out of nowhere. And I was just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I am used to Japanese macaques screaming or monkeys screaming. A dinosaur is 10 times louder. So yeah, anyway, that was a fun experience, but that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, there's the like button, and don't forget to hit it because it does help out a lot. There's the subscribe button if you want to see more, and there's the notification button. But before that one starts working, I will feel bad about my builds. Anyways, have a wonderful day, guys. See ya!